On their very first day at Westfield Academy, a school where almost everyone was white, twin sisters Maya and Mariah Johnson walked through the front doors and immediately felt hundreds of eyes lock onto them. The whispers started before they even reached their lockers. The stares cut through them like knives, and within minutes, 3 boys blocked their path in the crowded hallway, smirking like they owned the place. "Lost," one of them said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The cleaning staff entrance is around back." Laughter exploded around them. Phones came out. Students started recording. Maya and Mariah stood frozen, their hearts pounding, but they kept their faces calm. They had been taught something important by their father, a lesson drilled into them through years of training. Never show fear, never lose control, and never, ever let hatred break you. What these bullies didn't know, what nobody at Westfield Academy could possibly guess, was that these 2 quiet girls were black belt fighters. Their father had trained them since they were 6 years old. Every morning before school, every evening after homework, they practiced. Punches, kicks, blocks, discipline. Their father always said the same thing. "You're learning this not to fight, but to protect yourselves when words aren't enough anymore." The boys thought they had found easy targets. They were completely wrong. But before we go any further, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Are you in the United States, Canada, somewhere across the ocean? We love hearing from you. And don't forget to hit that like button to support this channel and subscribe, because tomorrow we're bringing you another story that will blow your mind. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now let's get back to Westfield Academy, where every insult, every shove, every cruel joke is building toward an explosion that nobody will be able to stop. The autumn morning was cold. A thin fog hung in the air, wrapping around the old trees that lined the road to Westfield Academy. The school building stood tall, made of dark red brick with huge windows that sparkled in the early light. Everything about this place screamed money, tradition, power. This wasn't just a school. It was a symbol. A fortress where rich families sent their kids, where everyone knew everyone, and where outsiders were not welcome. Maya and Mariah walked side by side up the stone path. Their uniforms were pressed perfectly. Their shoes were polished. Their backpacks hung neatly on their shoulders. But none of that mattered, because the moment they stepped onto that campus, they became targets. Students gathered in groups, watching. The chatter died down. Eyes followed the twins with every step. Maya could feel it, that heavy pressure of being watched, judged, rejected before anyone even knew their names. Her heart beat faster, but she kept her face blank. Beside her, Mariah's hand gripped her backpack strap so tight her knuckles turned white. But she didn't look down. She didn't run. They kept walking. From the top of the front steps, 3 boys appeared. Ryan Whitaker stood in the middle, leaning against a stone column like he was posing for a photo. His friends, Zach and Brent, stood on either side of him, laughing at some joke only they understood. Ryan's eyes locked onto the twins, and his smirk grew wider. He didn't say anything yet. He didn't have to. The message was clear. You don't belong here. Maya heard her father's voice in her head, calm and steady. Control is power. They will try to provoke you. Don't give them what they want. She breathed in slowly. Mariah glanced at her, and without words, they understood each other. This wasn't going to be easy. This was going to be a war. Inside the building, the hallway was crowded. Students slammed lockers, shouted to their friends, rushed to class. But when Maya and Mariah walked through, everything shifted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Groups of girls covered their mouths and whispered, eyes glued to the twins. Some students moved aside, but others stayed planted in their spots, forcing Maya and Mariah to squeeze past. Nobody said, "Excuse me." Nobody smiled. Nobody welcomed them. A locker door swung open suddenly, almost hitting Mariah in the face. She stopped just in time. The boy holding the door didn't apologize. He just smirked and walked away. A girl bumped into Maya's shoulder hard, then kept walking like nothing happened. Another group of boys formed a wall across the hallway, blocking the path. Maya and Mariah had to stop and wait while the boys slowly, deliberately moved aside, grinning the whole time. It wasn't violent. Not yet, but it was a message. You're not wanted. You don't fit. Get out! Maya clenched her jaw. She remembered all those mornings in the garage with her father, practicing the same move 100 times until it was perfect. He would say, "Patience is a weapon. The person who stays calm wins." Mariah's fists were clenched at her sides. She wanted to scream, to shove back, to make them stop. But she saw her sister's steady gaze and forced herself to breathe. Their first class felt like torture. The teacher called their names without even looking up, like they were just numbers on a list. The other students stared at them the entire time, studying their reactions, waiting for them to break. There was no kindness, no curiosity, just cold, silent judgment. When the bell finally rang, the hallway exploded with noise again. And there, right in the middle of the corridor, stood Ryan and his crew. They didn't move. They just stood there, blocking the way, daring the twins to walk past. Maya lifted her chin and looked Ryan straight in the eyes. She didn't blink. She didn't look away. Mariah stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, mirroring her sister's calm strength. Inside, both of them were trembling with anger. But outside, they showed nothing. Ryan's smirk faltered for just a second. Then he laughed, loud and fake, and his friends joined in. The twins walked past them, heads high, steps steady. Behind them, the laughter followed like a shadow. That afternoon, the school courtyard was filled with students. The sun was shining. The grass was perfectly cut. White benches sat under tall trees. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. But underneath that pretty surface, the twins felt the cold stares, the whispers that never stopped. Maya leaned close to her sister and whispered, "Stay calm. Don't react." Mariah nodded, lips pressed into a thin line. Her hands hung loose at her sides, but every muscle in her body was tight. It felt like the entire school was testing them, watching to see if they would break, waiting for them to cry, to fight back, to give up and leave. But Maya and Mariah kept walking. Back straight, eyes forward. They knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The second morning at Westfield Academy felt different. The air was heavy like a storm waiting to break. The old clock in the hallway ticked loudly, echoing off the brick walls. Maya and Mariah walked into their first class under the weight of 100 stares. Nobody needed to speak. The looks said everything. The teacher called their names in the same flat, bored tone as the day before. No smile, no welcome. Just 2 names read off a list. Maya felt invisible, like she didn't matter at all. Out in the hallway between classes, the chaos was worse. Students rushed past, slamming lockers, shouting to friends. But in the middle of all that noise, small traps appeared. A group of boys just happened to be standing in the way, forcing Maya and Mariah to stop. The boys shifted aside slowly, lazily, like they were doing the twins a favor. No apologies, no eye contact, just cold, silent rejection. When Maya bent down to pick up a book she dropped, she saw Zach staring at her with a half smile. Brent walked past and muttered just loud enough for people nearby to hear, "Looks more like a janitor than a student." Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and mean. Day after day, it was the same. A shoulder bump that sent Mariah stumbling. A whisper aimed at Maya. Wadded paper thrown at their lockers. Small things but constant, like drops of water slowly wearing down a stone. What made it worse was the silence from everyone else. Other students saw what was happening. Their eyes would meet Maya's for a second, then dart away like looking meant being involved. Teachers buried their heads in their laptops, pretending not to notice. The message was clear. Nobody was going to help. More than once, Mariah's fists clenched without her realizing it. But Maya would shake her head gently, a silent reminder. Control is power. At home, their father, David Johnson, noticed the changes. The way Mariah threw her backpack down harder than usual. The sadness in Maya's eyes when she thought nobody was looking. He didn't ask questions. He just waited. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Maya finally spoke. "They're not stopping, Dad." David nodded slowly. "I taught you this would happen. They'll try to push you to your breaking point. But remember, the person who stays calm is the person who wins." His words weren't loud or harsh, but they landed like stones, heavy and solid. The next day, the bullying got worse. In class, Brent muttered loud enough for the whole row to hear, "Didn't know Westfield started giving scholarships to maids." Scattered laughter filled the room. Mariah sucked in a sharp breath. Her hand trembled. Maya placed her hand flat on the desk, steady and firm, like she was transferring her strength to her sister. During recess, passing by the sports field, the twins heard whistles and jeers, mocking voices calling out cruel jokes. Each word was like a tiny cut, not deep enough to kill, but sharp enough to hurt. Inside, the anger kept building. Maya would close her eyes and remember the training sessions with her father, his voice shouting, "Keep your balance, control your breathing." That memory helped her hold back the rage. For Mariah, it was harder. Her temper was like fire, always ready to explode. But her sister's calm gaze always pulled her back from the edge. At Westfield, every day was a test, and everyone knew that patience couldn't last forever. On Wednesday morning, the sky was bright and blue. Sunlight spread across the school's perfect lawns. But for Maya and Mariah, that light brought no comfort. It only made them more visible, more exposed. The courtyard was full of students talking, laughing, heading to class. And then Ryan Whitaker stepped into the center of it all. Ryan's blonde hair was perfectly combed. His shirt was untucked, his tie loose, like the rules didn't apply to him. He walked with the confidence of someone who believed the entire school belonged to him. Zach and Brent walked beside him, shoulders bouncing with quiet laughter. When Ryan saw Maya and Mariah crossing the courtyard, he stopped. His voice rang out, sharp and loud. "Did you two get lost on the way to the servants' entrance?" The words cut through the morning air like a knife. Other conversations stopped. Students turned to watch, eyes lighting up like this was free entertainment. Laughter burst from Zach and Brent, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Mariah slowed down for half a second. Her shoulders trembled. Her grip on her backpack tightened. Maya kept walking, but her glance toward Ryan was cold and sharp as ice. Ryan stepped forward, raising his voice even louder. "Anyone here speak English? Or should we try some jungle talk?" More laughter. Louder this time. Students who hadn't been watching before turned around now, mouths half open in shock or stifled giggles. Maya felt the air press down on her chest. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. In her head, her father's voice echoed. "Don't give them the reaction they want. Hold your balance." Mariah's teeth clenched. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She wanted to scream in Ryan's face, but Maya's steady look held her back like an invisible rope. In the days that followed, Ryan's attacks moved beyond words. In the hallway, Zach deliberately slammed his shoulder into Maya, sending her books flying across the floor. Brent's laughter followed, sharp and cruel. "School could use a floor cleaner." The words were light, but they cut deep. Nearby students covered their mouths, trying not to laugh. They didn't join in openly, but their silence gave the bullies power. Maya bent down slowly to pick up her books, moving with calm control. Mariah crouched beside her, eyes blazing with fury. Above them, the laughter buzzed like angry bees. In class, folded pieces of paper got passed around. Inside were crude drawings mocking the twins, their hair exaggerated, their faces distorted. Cruel words repeated over and over. Maya folded them carefully and slipped them into her bag without changing her expression. Mariah bit her lip so hard it started to bleed. The teacher kept lecturing, eyes glued to the board, acting like nothing was happening. That indifference made everything feel heavier. That evening at dinner, the house was quiet. David watched his daughters carefully. He saw the exhaustion in their shoulders, the way they avoided looking at him, like they were afraid to show how much it hurt. He didn't push. He just waited. Maya set down her spoon. Her voice was small but steady. "You were right, Dad. They want us to lose control." David nodded. "And you didn't." Mariah spoke, her voice shaking. "But every day they push harder." David's gaze was firm, patient, but unyielding. "They think you'll break. Show them you're not the kind that breaks. The next day, the taunts escalated again. In the courtyard, Ryan tossed a basketball that rolled into Maya's legs. When she stopped, startled, Ryan laughed loud. "Oh, sorry. Guess you're not used to the sports we real Americans play here?" The crowd burst into laughter again. This time, Mariah's control almost snapped. Her eyes blazed. But Maya's hand pressed firmly on her sister's shoulder, forcing her to keep walking. Together, they walked past the mocking laughter. Backs straight, heads high, but inside, Maya felt it clearly. A line was being pulled tighter and tighter, and patience couldn't hold forever. That night, sitting at their study table, Maya spoke softly. Her tone was calm but heavy as a promise. "If they push any further, we won't back down." Mariah looked directly at her sister and nodded. In her eyes, the fear had turned into something else. Resolve. Determination. Steel. Friday morning arrived with fresh air after last night's rain. Dew sparkled on the branches. Westfield Academy rose in all its grandeur, red brick walls glowing in the sunlight. But that beauty was just a mask hiding the rot underneath. Maya and Mariah entered the courtyard as usual. But as they approached their lockers, they immediately knew something was wrong. A crowd had already gathered. Eyes were fixed in one direction. Whispers rippled through the air like waves. And then they saw it. Their lockers had been spray-painted with thick red paint. Slurs, insults, words as raw and ugly as blood, scrawled across the metal in jagged strokes. Mixed in were grotesque drawings, mocking black faces in the cruelest way possible. The paint was still wet, dripping down onto the tiles like a wound that couldn't be hidden. Laughter exploded through the hallway. Students held up their phones, recording everything like this was morning entertainment. Half smirks spread across faces. Eyes gleamed with delight. Ryan Whitaker leaned casually against a nearby locker, arms folded, a satisfied grin on his face. Zach and Brent stood beside him like bodyguards. To them, this was victory. "Just decorating to make it fit in," Ryan called out, his voice booming across the crowd. Laughter exploded again, fiercer this time, flooding the hall like a tidal wave. Maya stood frozen before the locker. Her shoulders were tight. Her hands trembled, but she clenched them into fists. Her heartbeat pounded like war drums. Beside her, Mariah's cheeks burned. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She wanted to charge forward, to wipe that smirk off Ryan's face, but her sister's cold, steel gaze stopped her. Nobody came to help. Teachers walked by, glanced once, then turned away and hurried off like nothing had happened. That silence, that deliberate turning away, was heavier than all the laughter combined. A crumpled piece of paper slipped through the locker slit and fell at Maya's feet. She bent down and picked it up. The words glared back at her. "Go back where you belong." The handwriting was messy, but the message was as sharp as ice. Mariah clenched her fists so hard her nails dug into her palms. She raised her gaze at Ryan, eyes burning. Maya exhaled slowly. Her anger compressed into deadly calm. The crowd started snapping photos, filming from every angle. Faces glowed with anticipation, like they were watching a show. A few whispers broke out. "What are they going to do?" "Bet they'll cry." Small words, but sharp enough to pierce skin. Maya heard every single one. Each syllable was a cold needle, but instead of letting tears rise, she closed her eyes for 1 second. She recalled her father's voice. "Control is power. Don't let them steal your composure." Ryan stepped closer. His shoes struck the floor like hammer blows. He stopped right in front of the sisters, eyes dripping with disgust. "You should be thanking us. Not everyone gets personalized art on their lockers." Another wave of laughter burst out. Brent slapped Zach's shoulder. Both of them howled with glee. This time, Mariah could no longer hold back. She leaned toward Maya, her voice low but firm. "We can't take this anymore." Maya opened her eyes. She stared directly at Ryan. No words were needed. Her gaze alone, sharp as a blade, made Ryan falter for half a beat before his mocking smile returned. Finally, a security guard handed them some dry paper towels. The twins began scrubbing the paint. The crowd hooted and whistled like they were watching a performance. The paint clung stubbornly. The harder they wiped, the more it smeared. The sharp chemical smell filled the air. Maya and Mariah bent low, shoulders trembling. Not from weakness, from fury forced deep inside, compressed like a spring ready to explode. In both their minds, the same word pounded over and over: enough. When the bell rang, the crowd scattered, leaving behind 2 smeared locker doors and 2 silent figures standing before them. Maya lifted her head. Her dark eyes were deep and resolute. She whispered just loud enough for her sister to hear. "No more silence." Mariah nodded. Her eyes burned with a different fire now. Not scattered rage, but focused, searing determination. They both knew the line had been crossed. From here on, nothing would ever be the same. Monday morning, the courtyard at Westfield Academy was more crowded than usual. Shoes pounded on stone. Voices overlapped. Locker doors clanged. But beneath all that noise, there was a rhythm of tension. Students gathered in scattered groups, and every single pair of eyes was locked on one spot: the entrance where Maya and Mariah Johnson were walking in. The twins walked side by side, heads held high, posture straight. Their uniforms were crisp. Their shoes were polished. Their hair was neatly tied back. But there was something different about them now, something in their faces. A calmness that felt almost strange, like they had prepared for what was coming. Gone was the quiet endurance from before. Now, each of their steps landed with steady weight, echoing firmly on the stone courtyard. On the opposite side, Ryan Whitaker stood with his arms crossed, back against the brick wall. His expression was smug, full of expectation. Zach and Brent flanked him, eyes glinting like small flames. Around them, students gathered in a half-circle, murmuring non-stop. Nobody wanted to miss the showdown everyone knew was coming. Ryan's voice rose loud and clear, cutting across the courtyard. "Thought you two were too scared to even come back to school." Laughter burst from Zach, quickly echoed by Brent. A few students in the crowd joined in, half awkward, half amused. Every gaze turned toward Maya and Mariah. Maya stopped walking. Her eyes fixed straight ahead. Her voice was calm, even, but it rang out like metal striking stone. "If that's what you were hoping for, then you're more pathetic than I thought." Whispers rippled outward like waves. Some faces showed surprise. Others burned with eagerness to see what came next. Mariah stepped forward half a pace, standing level with her sister. Her voice was firm and clear. "We belong here more than you do." The crowd roared. The atmosphere tilted, like it was on the verge of explosion. Some students whispered, "This is serious now. Something's about to happen." Ryan raised his eyebrows. His smirk faded into a scowl. He stepped into the center of the courtyard, facing the sisters head-on. "You think you're tough, huh?" Maya didn't blink. Her reply was flat, yet unyielding. "No, but I know the truth." "And that scares you?" The air froze. Leaves rustled in the trees. Shoes shuffled within the ring of students like the pounding of drums. Suddenly, Ryan thrust his hand forward, shoving Maya's shoulder hard. The force pushed her back a step, but her feet planted firmly again. Her gaze didn't waver. The courtyard erupted in shouts. Half shock, half thrill. Zach lunged toward Mariah, smacking the books from her hands. They scattered across the ground. Brent followed with a mocking shove to her shoulder. "Run home to Daddy!" Laughter broke out again, but this time there was a current of anticipation woven through it. Mariah stiffened. She bent down to gather her books, but her hand trembled with fury. When she lifted her head, her eyes blazed like fire. Maya stepped beside her, laying a hand on her tense arm. The signal was clear: don't lose control. But no more retreat. Mariah's breathing came sharp, then steadied. She rose slowly, back straight, eyes locking on Ryan. In both their minds, the words from the night before echoed, "No more silence." Ryan, seeing they weren't reacting the way he expected, frowned. His voice dropped lower, but still loud enough for everyone to hear. Say that again in front of everyone." Mariah didn't hesitate. Her voice rang out clear as a bell. "We're not afraid of you." The courtyard exploded. Students shouted and jumped. Others raised their phones to record, knowing this moment would spread across social media within minutes. Ryan clenched his teeth. He stepped closer to Maya. The space between them shrank to half an arm's length. His blue eyes flickered with anger, but behind it, for just a split second, there was something else. Unease. Maya stared back. Her gaze was calm to the point of chilling. Her voice dropped, steady but carrying across the courtyard. "If you want to try, then do it. But you'll regret it." The air stilled. Silence swept over the crowd, broken only by the wind rustling through the courtyard trees. Students held their breath, hearts pounding. Ryan growled. He lunged forward to shove Maya again, harder, sharper, determined. But before he could make contact, Maya pivoted aside, swift, precise, her foot grounded firmly, her shoulder lowered. Her body shifted instinctively into defense. Mariah stepped forward too, eyes locked on Zach and Brent. In that moment, the courtyard became a tense circle. Its center narrowed to a few figures, poised for an eruption that could not be undone. The sisters knew it clearly. The final line had been crossed. From this point on, there was no turning back. The moment Ryan's hand shot forward, the entire schoolyard seemed to hold its breath. The sound of footsteps, chatter, laughter, all vanished. Only the whisper of wind through distant trees remained. Maya twisted her hips, sliding aside in one smooth motion. So fluid it left no trace. Ryan's arm froze in midair. His momentum was broken. His body stumbled forward. A ripple of gasps burst from the crowd. Before Ryan could recover, Maya spun back. Her palm opened. She pushed firmly against his chest with precise, controlled force. He staggered backward. His back slammed into the brick wall with a heavy thud that made students flinch. His eyes widened. His face flushed red with rage. But threaded through his anger was something he had never felt before. Confusion. Zach Miller shot a glance at Brent Cooper, then charged toward Mariah. He thrust his shoulder, trying to knock her to the ground. But Mariah was ready. She dropped her weight, slid aside, seized Zach's arm, and yanked hard. She used his own momentum to spin him off balance, sending him crashing forward onto the pavement. Brent rushed in, trying to pull Zach up, but Mariah stepped firmly into his path. One steady look from her stopped him cold. The crowd exploded. Cheers, whistles, shouts of excitement filled the air. Phones shot up high, recording every second. Cameras shaking in eager hands. This was no longer a scuffle. This was a public duel, and nobody could stop it now. Maya stepped back, eyes locked on Ryan. She saw the fire in his gaze, but beneath the fury flickered a tremor. Never before had Ryan been shoved back so openly, humiliated before the entire school. His pride, his false sense of power, was being stripped away. Ryan roared. He lunged at Maya again, wilder this time. His arms flailed chaotically, desperate to erase the sting of his failure. But Maya's training was too deep. She dropped low, letting his swing cut through empty air. Her shoulder turned just enough to let him miss. With a snap of her hips, she pressed her elbow lightly into his ribs. In the main hallway, footsteps echoed long and harsh, like the beating of a trial drum. Ryan limped deliberately, groaning with every step. Zach and Brent clutched their sides and shoulders, exaggerating their pain for anyone watching. Maya and Mariah walked side by side, steady, unhurried. Their posture was straight. Their eyes never lowered. Students trailed behind, but teachers pushed them back, leaving a corridor of tension. The polished hallway gleamed. Trophy cases reflected a stark contrast, the broken and the proud. No one spoke, but the air was heavy, close to shattering. When they reached Principal Reynolds's office, the heavy wooden door opened to reveal a cold room smelling of polished wood and old paper. Portraits of past headmasters hung on the walls, their stern gazes seeming to pass judgment. Ryan immediately jabbed a finger forward. "They attacked us in front of the whole school." Brent chimed in, shrill. There was no reason. They just snapped. Reynolds furrowed his brow. His hands were clasped before him. For a brief moment, his eyes flicked toward the two sisters. Maya returned his gaze calmly. Mariah's grip on her backpack strap whitened her knuckles. The phone on the desk buzzed. Daniels picked it up, glanced at the screen, then looked at Reynolds with unease. The video of the fight had already gone viral on social media. In just minutes, the entire school had seen it, and likely parents too. Reynolds drew in a long breath. He placed his hand flat on the desk. His voice was gravelly. We'll need a full investigation. But for now, both sides are suspended temporarily. The air sank. Ryan smirked weakly, triumphant despite his disheveled state. Maya and Mariah exchanged a look. Not surprised, only steady. Inside them, another fire had been lit. The real battle had only just begun. That afternoon, the late sun stretched across the quiet suburban street of Atlanta. The Johnson home sat nestled beneath old oak trees, its dark brown roof tiles blending into the fiery horizon of dusk. From the outside, the house radiated calm, but inside, the atmosphere was strung tight as a bow. Maya and Mariah sat at the dining table, still in their uniforms. Wrinkles creased their shirts. A few loose strands of hair fell around their faces, remnants of the chaos from the morning. In front of them, a phone screen lit up again and again. Messages, notifications, video clips from everywhere. The constant ping stabbed at the silence like needles. David Johnson entered. Tall and broad-shouldered, his eyes sharp with the weight of a man who had faced many trials. He stood quietly for a few seconds, studying his daughters with knowing eyes. He didn't need to ask. He saw it all there, the exhaustion, the anger, but above all, the resolve. He pulled out a chair and sat. His voice was steady and low. Tell me. Maya drew a deep breath and recounted everything. The taunts, the shove, the book scattered. The counterattack, Mariah cut in, voice thick with strain. I didn't want to fight. But if I hadn't... The sentence trailed off, but the meaning was clear. David listened, never interrupting. His hands clasped calmly on the table, steady as stone. When they finished, he nodded. A flash of steel appeared in his eyes. You did what needed to be done, controlled, didn't go too far. That's true strength. The tension eased for a moment. But then, as if pulled by an unseen thread, all three turned toward the window. Outside, the street was empty, but not at peace. Dusk shadows lengthened, carrying unease. Mariah whispered, Do you think they'll let this go? David stared at the front yard. His voice was low but resolute. No, people like them never accept defeat. They'll come here. His words landed like prophecy. Maya and Mariah shivered, then straightened their backs. They had seen that look in their father's eyes before. The eyes of a soldier, unshaken before storms. Dinner passed quickly, almost in silence. The clink of utensils against plates echoed dry and sharp, like a countdown clock. Outside, the wind rose, scraping dead leaves across the porch. None of them spoke, but all understood. This was the stillness before the storm. David cleared the dishes. His movement was slow but deliberate. He paused by the window, eyes scanning the street. In the dim light, a strange car turned onto their block, rolling forward slowly. Headlights cut across the pavement, dominating the space. They're here, David murmured without turning. Maya and Mariah stood at once. Outside, car doors slammed shut. Each thud was like a hammer strike. Footsteps, heels clicking sharply, heavy strides thudding behind. Sandra and Greg Whitaker had arrived. Not for dialogue, but to vent their rage. David motioned for his daughters to step back. He moved onto the porch, opening the door before the bell could ring. His frame filled the doorway, a living wall between his family and the fury approaching. Sandra stormed forward, her face twisted with rage. Golden hair disheveled, her voice shrill. You think your family can humiliate my son and get away with it? Greg loomed close, eyes bloodshot, fists clenched tight. You'll pay for this. But David didn't move. The wind whipped across the porch, tugging at his shirt. But his gaze stood immovable as stone. His voice was deep, even, not loud, but commanding. Your son attacked first. My daughters defended themselves. You know that? Sandra scoffed. Her laughter was sharp as shattered glass. We'll make sure the whole school, the whole city sees the truth. There'll be no place left for your girls. Greg snarled, stepping closer. His shoulders were tight. He raised his fist as if to strike, but David moved like lightning. His large hand clamped Greg's wrist, twisting sharply, just enough. Greg staggered, thrown off balance, collapsing onto the steps. Sandra screamed, lunging forward. But David blocked her with a swift sidestep, one arm holding firm. His voice rang out, cold as steel. You've crossed the line. This is my home. You will not bring your hatred here. Maya and Mariah watched from behind the doorway, hearts pounding but eyes alike. They weren't afraid. They saw their father stand, a fortress unshaken before fury. The wail of police sirens pierced the distance, growing louder, ripping apart the tense air. Neighbors peeked from windows. Some whispered. Some secretly recorded. Sandra shrieked, her voice pitched in theatrics. He attacked us! Arrest him! But David stood tall, releasing his grip. His voice was steady and resonant, a declaration. You brought violence here, and violence turned back on you. The wail of police sirens echoed down the street, then faded as two patrol cars pulled up in front of the Johnson house. Red and blue lights flashed against brick walls, across windows, across the faces of neighbors watching from a distance. Night had already fallen, but the scene glowed bright under the rhythmic beams, like an unwanted stage. Maya and Mariah stood still behind the window, hearts racing, but their eyes steady. David stepped onto the porch, hands empty. His voice was deep and clear. We didn't start this. They came to my house. They attacked. Sandra lunged forward, fake tears streaming. Her finger jabbed at David. He hit my husband. He twisted my arm. Arrest him! Greg hobbled beside her, clutching his chest, forcing himself into the role of victim. An officer stepped up. His badge gleamed under the lights. Officer Martinez. His eyes scanned quickly across the scene, pausing on David, then down to Greg, still staggering. His tone was calm but firm. Everyone in the car. We'll sort this out at the station. Murmurs rippled from the neighbors. Some phones still filmed. The tension was suffocating but no longer chaotic. It felt like the next act of a staged drama where truth and lies would be torn apart. Brookdale Police Station glowed under pale fluorescent light. The air was tinged with paper and stale coffee. Maya and Mariah sat beside their father in the waiting room, cold metal chairs beneath them. They were silent, but their posture was straight, their eyes unyielding. In the other room, Sandra and Greg shouted. Their shrill voices carried through the hall. They accused. They embellished, weaving a story they believed could deceive the system. But the station was not like the school, not like the principal's office. Here, words had to be proven. Martinez entered the interrogation room where the Johnsons sat. He dropped a thick file onto the table. His movement was decisive. Maya and Mariah's eyes tensed, but he gave a small nod, a gesture of reassurance. I need to hear it all from the start. David spoke first. Brief, clear, precise. He didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. Maya and Mariah followed, recounting in detail from Ryan's bullying at school to the counterattack to Sandra and Greg storming into their home. Each word aligned. Every detail meshed together like the unbreakable spine of a story. Martinez listened in silence, jotting notes occasionally. When they finished, he opened the file and pulled out the first report. Statements from several neighbors. He skimmed aloud. I saw the Whitakers come to the Johnson house yelling. The man lunged first. Mr. Johnson did nothing until he was attacked. Mariah inhaled sharply, as if a stone had been lifted from her chest. Maya squeezed her sister's hand under the table. Her eyes glinted with relief. Martinez slid out photographs from a neighbor's door camera. The images showed Greg lunging at David, arm raised, face twisted with rage. Sandra stood beside him, mouth wide, finger jabbing. Everything captured, undeniable. On the other side of the glass, Sandra slammed her fists on the table when she saw. Greg dropped his head, avoiding everyone's eyes. Sandra's voice screeched, high-pitched and desperate. "That's fake! Everyone's against us!" But her voice shook, stripped of power. Martinez didn't turn back. He flipped to more evidence. Clips from the schoolyard, already sent in by students. The videos showed Maya and Mariah deflecting, dodging, countering only when forced. The roar of the crowd in the background testified that violence hadn't started with them. David gave a small nod. His eyes lit with patience rewarded. He knew truth needed time, but it always emerged. The interrogation ended under heavy silence. Martinez stood gathering the file. His voice was firm. "For now, your family is not being charged. We'll continue the investigation, but the evidence so far leans entirely in your favor." Sandra heard it and shrieked from behind the glass. Her voice was ragged, desperate, like someone about to lose everything. Greg just sat, slumped, shoulders caving, eyes vacant. Meanwhile, Maya and Mariah stood beside their father. Proud, but not arrogant. They knew the legal battle and public storm were far from over. But tonight, at least, the truth had won. As they left the station, streetlights washed over them, no longer fractured by flashing sirens. The neighborhood was calm again. But inside all three of them, the knowledge burned clear. This was only the beginning of a journey to expose the whole truth. And they were ready. That morning, Westfield Academy glowed under the new sun. The atmosphere was unlike the days before. No longer tense silence, no longer cruel, mocking laughter. Instead, the hallways brimmed with cautious glances, hushed conversations about what had happened. News had spread everywhere. The schoolyard video, neighbors' testimonies, security camera images. The truth could no longer be buried. Inside the main office, Principal Reynolds sat upright, a thick stack of files before him. His face was tense, but in his eyes there was something new, acceptance. Beside him, Mr. Daniels stood stiff as though he too was on trial. Alongside those who had once relied on power and silence to cover wrongdoing. Across from them, the Johnson family sat straight. David, Maya, and Mariah. They didn't need to speak further. They had let the truth speak for them. The doors swung open. Sandra and Greg Whitaker entered with Ryan, Zach, and Brent trailing behind. They no longer looked like the arrogant figures of the past. Ryan kept his head bowed, his face pale. Zach and Brent darted their eyes about, avoiding everyone's gaze. Sandra still tried to wear pride, but her eyes flickered like a dying flame. Greg moved quietly, his shoulders sagging. Officer Martinez was also present, files in hand. He gave Reynolds a nod before standing to the side. His watchful eyes were steady and grave. Reynolds spoke. His voice was gravelly but firm. After reviewing the full evidence from police, witness statements, and the videos submitted, the disciplinary board has reached a decision. He paused, letting the words fall heavy in the room. Ryan Whitaker, Zach Miller, and Brent Cooper are expelled permanently. Bullying, violence, and racial slurs are unacceptable. A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Maya and Mariah exchanged a glance. They didn't smile, but their eyes gleamed bright. This wasn't triumph in revenge. It was justice stepping into the light. Reynolds continued. As for the Johnson family, suspensions are lifted. You will return to class today. The school admits its failure to protect its students. His voice caught at the last word, not for lack of will, but because the weight of truth carved the admission deep into his pride. Daniels lowered his head. His shoulders were rigid. In that moment, he became the symbol of cowardly silence. The silence that had helped push two girls into a fight they should never have faced. Martinez stepped forward. His voice rang steady, each word like a nail hammered down. Beyond the school's decision, we also announced the Whitakers will face charges of assault and unlawful trespass. The case will be referred to county court. This is not a private family matter. It is accountability under the law, Sandra shrieked. Her voice was sharp and desperate. "No, this is a conspiracy! We're the victims!" But her cry dissolved under the cold stares of the room. Greg said nothing. His head hung. His hand trembled. Ryan turned away, unable to look at his parents or his peers. Reynolds tapped the desk, signaling the end of the chaos. He raised his eyes toward Maya and Mariah. "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" Maya inhaled. Her voice was calm but carrying far. "We didn't come here to be heroes. We only wanted to study in peace. But when we were pushed into a corner, we stood up," Mariah added, her eyes sharp. "Not just for us, but for anyone who has ever been bullied into silence. We hope this school will change, not only for today, but for the generations to come." The room fell silent. Their words echoed, not loud, but powerful enough to reach every heart. The hearing ended. As the Johnsons walked out of the office, the hallway filled with gazes, no longer disdainful or curious. Now respect lingered, tinged with shame and even silent gratitude. Maya and Mariah walked back straight, heads high. Their footsteps echoed against the stone floor, reverberating through the hall like a reminder. A new era had begun. Outside, warm sunlight poured over the schoolyard, glinting off the flags fluttering high. The wind blew fresh, sweeping away the remnants of the storm, leaving the sky clear. David followed behind his daughters. His eyes were full of quiet pride. He knew this battle had not just been for them, but for countless students, those who had once bowed their heads before injustice. As the three stepped past the school gates, Maya turned for one last look. No more strangeness, no more fear. Westfield Academy was no longer a fortress of the powerful, but a place where justice could stand. Mariah smiled faintly, whispering to her sister. "We've ended the storm," Maya answered, her eyes lifted to the blue sky. "No, we didn't just end it. We cleared it away." The story of Maya and Mariah at Westfield Academy comes to a close here. From the early days of being looked down on, bullied, and humiliated, to the moment they stood up not only to protect themselves, but to change an entire system, they proved a timeless truth. Real strength does not lie in aggression, but in restraint, discipline, and the courage to face injustice. If this story touched you, don't forget to hit the like button so others can discover it too. Share this video with your friends so the message against bullying and discrimination can spread even further. And remember to subscribe to the channel today because tomorrow we'll bring you another story full of surprises and inspiration. What is the most important lesson you took from this story? Let us know in the comments. Every one of your thoughts is a piece that helps us all better understand the value of courage and justice. While you're waiting for the next story, we've already selected 2 more videos for you right here. Trust me, you won't want to miss them. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you on the next journey, where every step, every story is proof that justice will always find its way.